Hi everyone, thank you for joining our webinar today on dealing with remote working and social distancing. I'm Elisa Macris, a business psychologist at Thrive, and my co-host today is Adam Huxley, who is a consultant clinical forensic psychologist with over 20 years of experience. Hi Adam. Are you there?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Just so that you are aware, we are recording this webinar and it will be shared with colleagues later. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes with a 15-minute Q&A session at the end. However, if you do feel like you have questions or comments as we go along, feel free to type them up in the comment or chat box and we will try to answer them as we go along. So we have created these webinars in the light of current events taking place globally in regards to the COVID-19 outbreak. It is quite a stressful and challenging situation for most of us, and it's important that we share our experiences and support each other during these uncertain times. So hopefully these webinars in the coming days will help you to feel more relaxed and be able to deal with this situation a little bit better. So you've probably been bombarded with articles on this particular subject, and there are many different approaches that have been taken. For example, some only talk about how this affects our mental health, others only focus on remote working, while some focus on coping mechanisms such as meditation. So my aim today is to cover a little bit of everything and give you some tips on how to best cope with the challenges that you might have to face throughout this time. I will mention recommendations from studies which have explored how infectious disease outbreaks affect our behavior, thoughts, and feelings. So to begin, we will go through exactly what social distancing is, what quarantine is, and what isolation is, how it affects our mental health and well-being, and how we can cope with it. Then the second part of this webinar will focus on working from home. So this is quite a new field, but there are some systematic reviews out there that have looked into the effects of well-being, productivity, and stress when working from home. We will be talking through the potential challenges that you might have to face when you are working from home, and then I will go through some recommendations and coping strategies which will help you to face these challenges better. So what is social distancing, quarantine, and isolation? I'm sure that you already all kind of know what this is, but I'm just going to take a second to go through this with you again. So in the event of an infectious disease outbreak, local officials may require the public to take measures to limit and control the spread of the disease. There are three main ways in which we control the spread: social distancing, quarantine, and isolation. So social distancing is when we are all encouraged to practice at the moment. This requires us to keep a distance of approximately 2 meters or 6 feet from others to avoid gathering spaces such as schools and churches and public transport. While quarantine is when we avoid any contact with others. If you've been exposed to the coronavirus, for example, if one of your colleagues got ill and you've been sitting close to the colleague, you may have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks to see if you will get ill. At the moment, also, most countries are asking individuals who have traveled to quarantine themselves in order not to spread the disease further in different countries. Then there is isolation. This involves separating an individual who had contracted COVID-19 to prevent them from spreading it to others. So what are the challenges with this? Spending days or weeks at home with limited resources and social contact can really take a toll on our mental health. For example, we can have feelings of anxiety, which can arise from worrying thoughts about yourself or your family members contracting COVID-19 or spreading it to others. This could also make us feel fearful and ultimately can impact our behavior, where you might have trouble sleeping or focusing on daily tasks. The feelings of depression and low mood or boredom can also arise resulting in not being able to continue doing daily activities which were meaningful to you, such as going to the gym or meeting friends at a restaurant or a bar. Even anger or frustration can be felt as a result of not having autonomy over your own actions anymore, as you might feel that you are locked up in your house and you can't go anywhere and you have a loss of personal freedom. Or you could feel annoyed that others are hoarding resources when seeing the empty shelves in the supermarket. There's also the issue of feeling stigmatized if you're sick, as others will feel fear to get in contact with you in case they might get the illness themselves, which is true. However, this can also increase your feelings of loneliness and frustration. So lastly, some people might use unhealthy coping strategies such as drugs and alcohol in order to deal with these unhelpful thoughts and feelings that they're currently having. So be considerate that everyone reacts differently to stressful situations. There's no right or wrong reaction, and everyone's stress threshold is different because we've all been through different experiences in our lifetime. So some people might be able to cope with the situation a little bit better than others. However, it's important to try to remain calm and see if someone is struggling to also help them to remain calm. So as we can see from what is happening in the supermarkets, we tend to have a herd mentality when we see one individual taking drastic measures, such as hoarding food or toiletries. Others start to do the same. This adds to people feeling nervous and anxious as they are wondering if there will be anything left for themselves. So they do the same without considering other people around them, especially the more vulnerable population who are not able to leave their house currently. So if you're able to stay calm and make smart and conscious decisions, others around you will probably try to do the same. So this brings me on to my next point. How can we cope with the situation effectively in order to support ourselves as well as others? Firstly, it's important that you understand the risk. Are you part of the vulnerable population or not? If so, will you need extra support, and where can you get this from? Is someone living with you who is part of this vulnerable population? Make sure that you take the appropriate measures according to your situation. Also, educate yourself. This is basically what you're doing right now, listening to webinars, reading blogs and articles from reliable sources such as healthcare providers and health authorities, which can help you get a better understanding of the situation as well as the disease, and give you guidance on next steps to take or what are the best steps to take. So keep up to date with the new developments, but limit your news consumptions to reliable resources, such as the World Health Organization. Be mindful that too much exposure to media coverage can contribute to feelings of fear and anxiety. Use your time spent in isolation and quarantine, not just following the news, but also maybe listening to music, reading books, watching movies, maybe learning something new. Keep having a daily routine by doing things that help you preserve the sense of order and purpose in your life, such as work, exercise, or learning, all of which can be done from the comfort of your home. I had a webinar yesterday with one of my colleagues, Johanna. It was a stress webinar, and we were talking about the importance of keeping a daily routine. And we even thought, for people who are not, who are practicing just social distancing, who are not part of the vulnerable population, it might even make sense for you to get up, take a shower, get dressed, maybe take a little walk before work, since this might be something that you're used to, and then go back home and sit at your desk. Maybe this will freshen up your mind and get you prepared for the rest of the day. And changing your clothes into, let's say, work clothes, well, it doesn't have to be a suit necessarily, but changing your clothes into something more less relaxed, such as pajamas, you might feel more ready for the day. And this might keep your daily routine going. Then there is staying connected with others through FaceTime, Skype, chats, social media, and so on. If you're feeling sad or anxious or lonely, have conversations with people and share your experiences. we're all in similar situations, so we understand where you're coming from mostly, and most people will try to support you as best as they can, whether it's emotional support or practical support, such as bringing food to more vulnerable people. Remember that a social network is around you, even if it's not physically present. Personally, what I've been doing for the past few days, being alone at home, I was FaceTiming my best friend who's in Sweden at the moment. I was FaceTiming her every single day. And sometimes we just sit for hours on FaceTime and we don't even talk to each other. Just having her on the screen kind of made me feel like she was there with me. And we were just doing our own thing. And every now and then we would say something to each other. But it was mostly just having her presence there somehow made me feel more comfortable. But it's up to you to, obviously, spending hours on FaceTime is not something that everyone really wants to do, but it's my way of coping and her way of coping, so it works. So also try to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Make sure that you get enough sleep, eat well, and try out online exercises. There's so many personal trainers and gyms that are currently providing online exercises through like webcams and all of that. So just be aware and sign up to these things, because they might really help you to cope and give you more of a personal connection when you have to do exercise, because you won't have to do it alone. Other people will be doing it with you. So it will keep the social contact kind of from a distance, of course. Also, don't use alcohol and drugs as coping mechanisms. And if you feel you need more guidance and support, there's always online psychotherapy options that are available to you. Also, the Thrive app offers a chat service between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday, which is run by a group of psychologists, and Adam is one of them, who can guide you on how to manage your stress, anxiety, or depression. So lastly, you can use psychological strategies such as mindfulness techniques and to build your resilience and manage your stress. So talking about the Thrive app, it can basically guide you through a range of mind-based and body-based relaxation exercises, which can help reduce your stress levels and improve your sleep. I would recommend giving them all a try in order to find out which one works best for you. So for example, deep muscle relaxation is a body-based relaxation exercise where you have to tense and relax different muscle groups within your body. You can even try that with your children. Maybe that will help them go to sleep easier or help them relax more, keep their mind off the stress that they are also currently facing. Whereas meditation is a mind-based relaxation exercise, which is basically an attention exercise, which takes a bit more practice to do, but there's also guided meditation, which we have in the app, which might be quite helpful, such as aromatherapy or taking a walk somewhere, which can guide you through a calmer landscape and just take your mind off things, and also deal with the fight or flight symptoms that you might be feeling from the stress or anxiety that you're having. Importantly, we also have the CBT program, where each session is around 5 to 7 minutes duration. This can help you gain greater control of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, allowing you to build your resilience and make more conscious decisions when faced with stressful situations. So maybe not freaking out and hoarding everything and going out and buying a lot of food or that, just being more aware and conscious of how you're reacting and why you're reacting like this, how your emotions and thoughts are making you feel and what behaviors they are causing. So there's also a CBT journal where you can track your mood and the situation. This can help you to monitor your mood on a daily basis and how it might fluctuate from day to day, and why this is happening, what situation made you feel more anxious, or what made you more happy. Maybe you can find out what makes you happy and continue doing that. So basically, these are just a couple of ways you can look after your mental health and well-being during social distancing, isolation, and quarantine. So I will now move on to the second part of this webinar. where I'll be talking about working from home and what challenges we might face when we're working from home. So some of these challenges are having an appropriate work environment and resources. You should make sure that your workspace at home is suitable and you have everything you need in order to continue working comfortably and effectively. So this could be a chair, a desk, broadband, computer, phone, storage of sensitive materials, any of that, which helps you to continue your work as best as you can and as normally as you can. So if you have something that is missing, do contact your manager or HR to make sure that you have everything you need. Also, importantly, be mindful of people's work environment. There are a number of distractions at home, so this could be pets, children, roommates, or just noise from the outside that can interrupt someone's work. So just be mindful of how this could affect them and understand what challenges they might be facing. I would like to emphasize again on how important it is to talk openly about this with your manager and colleagues so that they can get a better understanding and you can suggest what works best for you. For example, you might need flexible working hours to work around roommates that you might have, which might be really loud at certain times or something like that. But just make sure that you find what works best for you in order to continue working as comfortably as possible. So then there's also the problem of blurring boundaries between the work life and home life. You might find it difficult to switch off from your work. And this relates back to what I was saying before about getting up in the morning, taking a shower, getting dressed basically in everyday clothes, and then in the evening changing back into your sweatpants because this is your time off. So, just doing these little things can make a difference and can count in your life. So being able to switch off in the evening is really important. So it's easy to lose track of time and blur these boundaries between work life and home life. But you should take time for family and friends and switching off. My colleague also is going to have a separate webinar on this next week on Wednesday. If you're interested, she will give you some tips and tricks on what to do and what the challenges might be. So if you're interested, please do sign up. Then there is also the ambiguity of goals and roles. When working remotely and feeling disconnected from your team or organization, it's easy to lose sight of your roles and responsibilities. Sometimes we might be assigned ambiguous work, which we feel is not within our job responsibility. So it's important to discuss this with your team so that goals and roles are identified and you don't feel like you're assigned too many tasks or too little tasks or something that is you feel like is not within your resources to be able to complete. So it's important to re-clarify these roles and goals often, especially during this time, as a pandemic response can result in new and competing tasks across your organization. So for example, for us, it's these new tasks that have come now is creating these new webinars as quickly and as reliably as possible in order to support everyone that we have within, to support every one of our clients, to support everyone that we have around us in order to start open conversations. So these new tasks, we've been in constant contact about them, assigning different webinars to each other and making sure that we're all happy with what we're doing and supporting each other. So your workload could increase, but just make sure that you know what this is and this is something that you're comfortable with. Then there's also the feelings of loneliness and isolation, which can arise during these times because of the self-distancing and remote working that you're doing at the moment. It is not just important to nurture your personal interactions in one's life, but also the work interactions, as we still spend most hours of the day working. So try to keep everyone in mind and schedule regular phone meetings or video conferences with your teams or colleagues throughout the week. Make sure your conversations are not just task-focused, but also about how they're dealing with the situation, and be open to share your own experience. For example, my team has agreed that we should try to have a call every Monday and also Fridays, just so that we can see what the coming week has going for us on Monday, like what we've scheduled in, and then on Friday to see how the week has been for us and what we're planning for the next week. So this might be helpful, but it's up to you to decide with your team what works best for you and how many times a week you want to have a call. Because initially it was suggested that we would have 3 calls a week, but then we were like, well, we have such a big workload, so maybe let's just try 2 calls and then see if we need another one. We'll add one in on Wednesday, but for now, it's trial and error at the moment, and to see what works best for you. We're also having a call with the whole organization on Monday, where we're all going to switch on our cameras and basically have coffee at our desk and just pretend like we're all in the virtual cafe together, just because it's the little things in life that count. It's which makes you happy at that point, which makes you feel connected. So we're all in this situation together, and being supportive of each other is key to improving mood and productivity. And research on the effects of stress, well-being, and productivity when working from home recommends training line managers on these unique demands. But unfortunately, in this situation, most organizations are not able to do so. So our best option is to really take ownership and see what works best for you, and because there's no one-fits-all approach. So have open conversations about this. So just to summarize the main points of working from home, so we recommend to schedule in regular meetings, to manage your workload, as you might have new or ambiguous tasks assigned to you, and clarify the roles amongst each other. You also should set boundaries between work life and home life, so you can really take the time to relax and take time to yourself and your family or whatever you need. And most importantly, remember that relationships and communications are really key to successful remote working. This is not an ideal situation because, as said before, research has said that we should train line managers on working from home before everyone suddenly starts working from home forever, basically. But be mindful and take ownership and just have open conversations with colleagues and managers, and try to resolve any problems that you might be facing, because there are solutions to anything that you might be struggling with. So this basically brings me onto the recap. We have talked about the difference between social distancing, which is reducing contact and interactions between each other; quarantine, which happens when you have been exposed to the virus, for example, when your colleague or someone in your team has been sick, so you need to isolate for 2 weeks. And isolation is when you've contracted the COVID-19 and need to be separated from others in order not to spread, the disease. We have also mentioned different ways to cope, spending time alone, and psychological strategies that might help you to manage stress and anxiety, such as meditation or deep muscle relaxation, which the app you have all access to the app through your organization, so you just need to ask for your access code. And at the end of this, I will also have a slide up to show you how to download the app and everything. And these can help you with your anxiety and stress and managing those fight or flight symptoms, such as sweaty palms, elevated heart rate, being able to reduce your stress is so important for both your physical and mental health, because chronic stress can lead to cardiovascular problems in the future, and we don't know how long this situation might last. So being stressed throughout the whole time is going to be quite detrimental on your health. So be aware that you can reduce these symptoms, and you can control your stress and your anxiety throughout this time. as well as help others cope with it. And lastly, we covered some challenges that you and your colleagues might face when working from home and how to cope with them. So hopefully some of these suggestions can help you and the people around you to effectively deal with the impact that the coronavirus has had on our daily lives. Just be mindful of other people and encourage positivity and support the vulnerable within our society. Just don't be afraid to ask for help or advice from anyone. Make sure, obviously, it's mostly from reliable resources. And really importantly, keep in touch while you're, even while you're social distancing or isolating or in quarantine, because it's so important for our mental health to be able to still feel connected to people and to be happy like that. And this will really help you with your well-being and help other people with their well-being as well. So this was the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, please do ask them. So there's one question about the recording of this session. We will have a platform where you will be able to access all the recordings of this session, and you will be able to share this with your colleagues as well. So we will be able to distribute this maybe sometime soon for sure. We're working on it right now. We will have all the webinars on there that are planned in for the future. Yeah, I can share the login details. Adam, would you like to answer this question? How realistic is it to switch off at the end of the day? And what tips would you give to put in clear boundaries?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're all keeping safe at home. Yeah, just one thing to say. Thank you, Alyssa. That's really useful. This is a big adjustment for all of us. And it's really about making adjustments to make sure we can cope with what is an uncertain time. Some of the things we've been talking about is trying to set boundaries in place so that you've got a clear distinction between your work life and your personal life. And we absolutely appreciate that's really difficult to do. Yeah, I think you need to find what works for you. So I can only tell you what works for me. The times where I do work at home, I work in a different room, and I try and spend most of my time in that room doing work-related activities. So when I leave that room at whatever time it is, I've made a sort of psychological adjustment to being back in my home. Other people want to stick closely to time so that they know that there's a deadline at, say, 5 o'clock, and at that point they make that adjustment back to home life from work life. Alyssa mentioned about just simply doing things like changing your clothes. It helps you sort of reset and just sort of make the distinction between being at work and being at home. But we absolutely appreciate that's really difficult to do. If you're also looking after children, you'll probably be disturbed, and you kind of have to work together with the rest of your family to make sure that you might be able to escape for an hour or two and do some work and then go back and do a bit of parenting or some other chores. You need to find what works for you, basically. There's no right or wrong answer here. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Yeah, as mentioned before, it's really the little things that count. So yeah, as in like changing your clothes or being in a certain room, changing your environment from one room to another room, it has a psychological impact on you, and it really sets boundaries, even in physical boundaries, let's say, changing your environment. With isolation versus quarantine, what is the advice regarding going outside for exercise? So when you're in isolation and in quarantine, you shouldn't really go outside, because in quarantine you have to stay 2 weeks inside because you might have been exposed to COVID-19, meaning that you might have the virus yourself, and it's just to see the development if you will have symptoms within these 2 weeks. So if you do go outside, there's a potential that you might spread it to other people. So just to be mindful of that and stay inside, because just to reduce the probability of you spreading the disease. And in isolation, it basically means that you are sick and that you have the disease. So also stay inside and please don't go out. If you have the energy to still exercise when you're sick, I wouldn't recommend exercising when you're sick, but maybe something that's not so straining on your physical health. So maybe just some yoga or like light Pilates, maybe some stretching. There's yin yoga, which is really, really good for your sleep. So it's basically, you can do like an hour of stretching, and there's sometimes relaxing music. And sometimes when I do yin yoga, I like to put an incense stick on and just make the whole atmosphere really good for myself in order to completely let go and relax. When you're in quarantine, yeah, that can be quite annoying because you might not be sick at all. You might be feeling 100% fine, but you're not allowed to go outside. Then still do the normal exercise that you do. What I would do in quarantine is I can do high intensity interval training, so I can still do lots of like push-ups and jumping jacks and skipping on ropes and stuff like that, and really use a lot of energy without like having to be outside, because hopefully you have enough space in your house somewhere to be able to roll out a yoga mat, or you have maybe order some weights online or something, or some skipping ropes in order to be able to have the facilities at home in order to do everything you would like to do when you exercise. And then, as said before, there's a lot of online classes going on at the moment that you can access, and a lot of apps that you can download. Hopefully that was helpful.
There's a question here, Lisa, about asking about the very sociable people amongst us, and a little bit of concern about maybe not seeing people for a long time, which is a really good question. I think that's absolutely normal to have that concern of being, kept indoors and not seeing people that we enjoy spending time with. I think right at the start, Alyssa mentioned using technology as a really important resource. Try scheduling some time to make calls with people, FaceTime calls or even Skype calls. Try and make sure that you stay connected to people generally. So, making phone calls, texting people, using whatever medium is open to you just to stay connected to people. And actually, maybe if you haven't heard from, your friends or your work colleagues, you can just check in with them as well. We were talking quite a lot about making sure that others are okay during this time. So yeah, I guess don't wait to keep in touch with people. Take the initiative and make sure you schedule in time to keep in touch.
Yeah, it's really important that you keep in touch with people, and that you're aware, that you're also conscious that everyone you care about is also doing well, because that might be quite stressful to think about the people that you care about maybe getting sick. So just call them to see if they're doing okay. It might help you to feel better as well, and make them feel good that you're talking to each other. But also be mindful of sharing your experiences with each other, because if you're talking about stressful situations and you're talking about your own stress, you might make other people anxious. So just be mindful of how you talk to each other as well. Okay. How should you cope if you start to feel overwhelmed with anxiety or you feel isolated? Adam, would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to say, isn't it? But I think the important thing for us to do is just try and take a bit of perspective and follow the guidance from the NHS and Public Health England, and not try and catastrophize as maybe much as other people are. So if we follow the guidance and if we try and make sure we look for information from reputable sources, that's going to decrease our anxiety. If you do find that you're getting a bit overwhelmed or a bit anxious just by listening to the news so much, try and engage in activities that are quite neutral. So maybe don't watch as much news, maybe try and limit the amount of information you're searching for on the internet, and try and do the things that you find pleasurable. Albeit those aren't necessarily things that you can do outside, but think about maybe reading a book or taking up an activity that you used to find really enjoying. I was going to say sewing, but I'm not sure how many of you actually find that interesting. But it's stuff like that, you know. Try and think of the things that maybe you could pick up just to distract yourself, and maybe don't sort of spend too much time watching the news or too much time thinking about searching for information on the internet.
Yeah, agreed. Here's another interesting question, which is very important as well. Any advice regarding those with existing mental health conditions, e.g. eating disorders or OCD, where behaviors may be exacerbated by the current situation, like having to wash hands and limited food / fear about this?
Yeah, again, that's a really reasonable question, isn't it? If before all of these issues happened, if you had problems with thoughts around contamination, or if you've been struggling with eating patterns, then I think it's again entirely natural that you'd feel a bit more anxious because of what you're seeing happen around us. Again, think about what's worked for you historically with those things. We are having to wash our hands a bit more frequently than perhaps we would before, and there's a reason for that. But this is time limited, hopefully, and that there'll be a point when the advice is maybe not to wash your hands as frequently as we are right now. So again, it's important not to sort of catastrophize too much. Think about the things that have helped you, keep a bit of sense of control over things, and speak to family or friends, and make sure that you feel supported by other people throughout this time. If you are in treatment, make sure you're connected to the people that have been supporting you, and make sure that you have the support that you need.
Yeah. Another question is it safe to use the gym? I would say not particularly. I mean, there's a lot of germs going around everywhere, but I would suggest that if you feel like you're not feeling well, then I wouldn't go to the gym. And it's just about being conscious that how confident are you that other people around you will be clean and sanitized. But it's also about not over catastrophizing, like Adam had said. So it's about being mindful. Some people still go to the gym, others prefer not to. So it's, in the end, it's up to you and how clean the gym is and what responsibilities they are taking to make sure that the spread is not increased. So this is not a question, but a comment. The tips around maintaining a routine are very useful. I have been making sure to get dressed for work while at home and sticking to the normal schedule, but had not thought of walking prior to starting work, which is a good tip. Thank you, Michael. Like, that's very good. It's always good to share successful coping habits and good behaviors amongst each other, encourage each other to do the same. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a comment around just practicing good hand hygiene as well. Yeah, that's a good point, a good reminder that we need to make sure we continue to wash our hands effectively. There's some really good advice pretty much everywhere that you can find. But again, on the NHS web pages about how to wash your hands effectively. If you're not sure about that, then please check that out. That's something you can do really quickly, and it's really easy. So that's something you can take action for straight away.
There's more questions around the recording sessions and how quickly they will be available or distributed. We're working on this right now. We will have a platform where we will distribute these recordings from, and we will make this available to you as soon as possible. And your organization will let you know. But it should happen by next week for sure.
There's another comment from someone. I live with others and we are sharing our workspaces and swapping them throughout the day to keep variety. That's a great idea if it works for you. I think you can find some pretty innovative ways to keep your workspace at home feeling like a new office. So we'd love to hear what you guys are doing at home to make sure that you're keeping things interesting enough.
Yeah, definitely. Give us your tips and what works for you as well, because everyone can learn from them. Somebody said, I find the gym is a great therapy. I completely agree with you. I love going to the gym, and I love being around the people that who go to the gym with me and exercising with people. I find it also like a social thing for me as well. And it's quite hard to be separated from this and suddenly think that you won't be able to go. Well, as somebody else said, just check with your gym on the hygiene policies. Some of them are very, very good at this. So just check with your gym, but also you can take the gym home. Like I said before, you can order equipment such as weights and a yoga mat or a skipping rope and all of that in order to continue exercising. And online exercises are available with live classes where you can see what people are doing live. But yeah, if you feel like you really, really need to go to the gym, unless you're sick, don't stop if you feel like you're confident in their hygiene policies and everything. What do we do about colleagues who do not take the advice seriously? It makes me anxious knowing that some colleagues are continuing to go to work and the gym and the pub. You can't really, if this makes you feel anxious, it's more about being able to understand that you can't control what other people are doing, and it's about how you are taking care of yourself and the people that you care about more. So the people that are closest to you, I mean. So if you are doing the right things for yourself, you should feel confident in that. If they feel confident with still going out or going to work or going to the gym, then that's how they are dealing with the situation and how they would like to continue. I don't know, Adam, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I agree with you on that one. I think it's difficult. You have to sort of focus on yourself a little bit as well as other people. And I think where possible, just try and model. So, I think we've all got a sort of responsibility and an opportunity to try and model to other people, and push them to the guidelines. We're all trying to follow what the government and what the health service is telling us to do during this time. So we follow their instructions about what to do and how to do it. As another question, do you have recommendations for helping others that are particularly worried about the situation, particularly ones that are prone to worrying anyway? Yeah, I think a really simple thing for you to do is just to stay connected to them, because I think oftentimes just knowing that somebody's there to help you or support you can have a really powerful effect for them. So it's making sure that people don't feel isolated. So we don't really know what's going to happen next. So I think it's absolutely natural that people are going to jump to conclusions or be a bit anxious about this emerging situation. So I think it's probably just a really good point to check in with people and make sure they're okay. We've got another comment about Joe Wicks, the body coach, is doing free online classes. So yeah, that's a great way of making sure you can stay active even if you are at home.
There's an interesting question as well about the virus. So how do people know they don't have COVID-19? We know people can have it with 0 symptoms. Yeah, that's true. And that's why it's so difficult to contain. And that's why it's spreading so fast, because people are going around without even knowing that they have it. But this is why these health precautions, the social distancing and the quarantine and all of this has been implemented in order to prevent that from happening, because people who go into quarantine, they basically don't have any, they might not have any symptoms, but it's just them potentially having them, and just making sure that this is all kind of managed, and everyone kind of has to take the responsibility themselves to follow guidelines in order not to continue spreading it, because yeah, you're right, some people might not have any symptoms at all, and that's why it's continuing to spread.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of comments about the gym. I think you need to make a judgment call on that yourself. I think discusses how you can exercise at home. I mean, ultimately, I think you need to make the call. You need to speak to your gym provider. But there are absolutely lots of things you can do in your house or in the privacy of your front room. So take a look what's online, or take a look what you can access free of charge. So another question here. Some of us are still working in a large office environment, and there are people here who are concerned about being in close contact with colleagues. Would you say the only recommendation in terms of helping them not to worry would be to reassure them? Yeah, I mean, some of you may, so there are certain sectors which perhaps can't work from home. So the care sector and the healthcare sector and hospital sectors are just work environments where you have to show up, and you have to be there, and you have to be present to complete your tasks. And you just follow the advice. You try and, again, model hand hygiene and sneezing etiquette, and make sure that you're taking all reasonable steps with your colleagues to try and keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
How can you ensure your team stays motivated? Yeah, I think we just have to acknowledge that it's a stressful time. There's a huge amount of uncertainty, and with uncertainty comes anxiety. So I think we kind of just have to acknowledge that people are going to feel unsure moving forward. But again, you have to work with your team to find out what works for you. So is that just having regular checking so that you remain task focused? Can you joint work on projects that maybe you might have done individually? Can you set yourself some sort of sense of reward at the end of the day if you've completed tasks? I think you can have a lot of fun with keeping your team motivated. And this is a chance to get really creative about how you can remain focused on work when everything else is going on around us.
Yeah. And another important thing that I've also been talking about with my team has been our role of, like, our job role within the crisis at the moment. So what is their job role? What is your job role? What is the significance of your work towards other people as well? Does it aid other people? So for me, for instance, it's about being able to talk to people and encourage open conversations and help them to have coping mechanisms to reduce their anxiety and their stress. So this is really motivating me and really helping me to stay positive. And this work is really meaningful to me, and as well as other people within our team. So we talk about that openly. So just talk about what your actual role is and how maybe it changed maybe now with the crisis response and everything, and or what you would like to do in order to stay motivated. What makes your job significant or meaningful to you? That's basically the question that you could ask. So there's a lot of people saying, yeah, wouldn't recommend to go to the gym, of course. That's true. Like, I mean, following the guidance from the government, yeah, just be mindful of that. But also, like we said, be mindful of how you talk to other people and their experiences and how they feel. As someone else said, gym is therapy for them. So it might be really, really detrimental for them to have that access, and it might really be part of their identity to go there. So just be mindful that people feel things differently, feel the importance of these tasks that they've been doing in their lives differently. So if part of their identity and part of their motivation and their happiness was going to the gym, suddenly having taken that away from them might be really upsetting. So just be mindful when talking to other people about best practices, and be encouraging for them to deal with it in other ways. For example, somebody said that they take walks in the countryside, but they're lucky to have the access to the countryside as well. Some people don't have access. For example, if you live in central London and you don't have a park close to you and everything, it might be a little bit more difficult. So just being mindful of other people's situation and being able to give best advice according to that, and not telling people what to do based on your own thought, just following guidance from the government and being mindful, I think. With children, can you take them out on walks? Can they play with friends outside if they stay 2 meters away? Worry about my isolated children. She is my only child, despite getting lots of love at home. Yeah, it's quite difficult for children because obviously they really want to see their friends and they really want to go outside, and it's so important for them to have their playtime, and especially if it's an only child, it's quite difficult. Maybe try to get basically FaceTime or Skype involved, so the children can see each other on FaceTime and Skype if you don't feel comfortable with your child going outside, and making sure that they're still seeing each other somehow and having some playtime over these through these mechanisms basically. And yeah, if your child is healthy, and if you're confident that other people around are healthy as well, or yes, we basically have to practice just social distancing, which means staying 2 meters away from each other. So as long as you and your child are feeling okay, and you feel confident going out with them, then yeah, just stay 2 meters away from people, just to make sure that you don't contract something from somebody else who might be infected. There's a useful comment There's one that says Plan C is a group on Facebook, which was set up this week to give you ideas on what you can do with children. So yeah, there's many, there's Facebook groups now that you can access in order to support each other as parents as well. So be sure to access those and see what everyone is doing and support each other. Should we still be supporting our local shops? They're still open. Yeah, I mean, if you feel confident to go outside and to support those shops, then yeah, maybe you can. If you're not part of the vulnerable population, if you feel confident to do that. But if you're not comfortable, then no, don't. It's again, like it's up to you and your situation to understand what is happening. We've basically reached our end of the webinar, so I might just have to log off. But thank you all for joining us today. It was really useful to see your comments and to see your feedback. I hope that these coping mechanisms have helped you to, will help you to deal with the situation in a more conscious and relaxed manner and help you to deal with your stress. So thank you very, very much. And we will talk later. I mean, we have another few webinars coming up, so please feel free to sign up to them. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.